Hello everyone and welcome to the second of the tree tutorials. At the end of the last tutorial we worked on taking a simple armature and sticking clump onto it, and here you can see one that I prepared earlier. This is one of the trees we looked at in part one. The clump is attached to the armatures. The clump has been sealed on the armatures and there's been some highlighting with some green turf as recommended in the Woodland Scenics video. Now you can see that it's a bit more solid than when we last looked at it, and it keeps its shape a bit firmer. So in this video what we're going to look at is how to seal your trees once they've been adhered to the armatures with the hobby tack, and then just the simple matter of highlighting them with some turf. Now I've been a sucker for doing as I'm told, and according to Woodland Scenics, you seal your trees with some of their scenic cement. This is S191, the scenic cement they recommend. You can see it's a real milky consistency, relatively cheap. I bought mine for $5.50 from Model Zone, and you're supposed to spray this glue on using, surprise surprise, one of their own pumps. And you can see that foolishly I've bought this as well. This is about $2.50 from the same shop. Trouble is, you can see that it's a regular spray gun. You attach this pump into your glue through there, it screws on top. Nice and convenient, you might think. However, I've found that they say use a fine spray to spray over your trees. The trouble is, it doesn't come out very fine. It comes out like any kitchen cleaner, and what happens is, as you may have recalled when we were mentioning in the first video, the water-based nature of the paint, because it's so runny, reacts with the hobby tack, and you kind of get massive defoliage like what's happened here. You can see that all down this side of the tree the hobby tack has become diluted, and all of the clump has just started to fall off. So through bitter experience I would say this isn't the way to go. It does eventually seal the trees, as you can see from this example. However, when I did this one, all of it fell off and I had to re-stick all the clump back on with the hobby tack. So it put me to wondering what I could do differently, and the solution that I've come up with is to basically use matte varnish to seal the trees. And a good coating of matte varnish over the tree will start to make it much firmer, give the turf, this stuff you can see on the mat here, something to adhere to, and then you can seal it again. And because it's it's based, I don't know what varnish is based upon, it's not water based, it won't react with the hobby tack. So what I'm going to be using is some Army Painter basic primer really, which is some shine or anti-shine matte varnish, I think it's called. $7.99. So really, by the time you've bought a can of this compared to the glue, you've spent about the same amount of money. Now I had this in reserve, so what I'm going to do is use this. I'm going to spray the tree, then sprinkle the turf on, and you'll see how it goes. So bear with me just a second whilst we get ready. Okay, so what I've rigged up here is basically a couple of boxes, one lid attached to the outside of another. I use it for my airbrushing. You can see that I've had to mop up over here the load of glue that I used from the previous spray gun. So what I'm going to do is take my armature like this, holding it by the base, and spray with my can across the tree to seal it, get it damp but not too damp, and then we can stick on some fine turf. Now to do this, what I'm going to do is just pop on a latex glove, because I've found that obviously with your hands in the way you're going to get a bit mucky doing it, and I can't be bothered. So I'm just going to pop my glove on, if I can get the thing on. I buy my latex gloves from B&Q, they're quite cheap, and they use them for airbrushing and anything else. So right, let's get that on. I guess you could use rubber gloves if you wanted. Right, so here we go. Take the can up, and quite far away, about a foot away, just a nice even spray, like so, and she's ready for turfing. To complete this final stage, I'm going to be using some fine turf, T46, Weeds I believe is the colour, it's basically a dark green, And all I'm going to do is take my varnished tree and sprinkle some of this turf on it, and it should just stick because the varnish is relatively wet. I've relatively soaked the tree, and it just gives it another degree of highlight, different tone in there, and I find that it just, I don't know, as I say, just gives it some highlights really. You can see I'm just sprinkling it on, I'm not using anything complicated, just giving it a twirl. Thickens up the foliage a little bit, and it can go back on its base. Quick shake, turf away, and he desperately looks for his base. There you go. Stick it in. Job's a good one. Now what I found when these trees dry, he said removing his glove, that they're actually much more firmer than the water-based ones. They're not going to fall apart as much. You can see that this one just hasn't, in comparison to this one hasn't fallen apart. You've got an option still to just have a tinker with the shape if you wanted to. If you just wanted to push things into place, you've got a little bit of leeway. And what I would do is that once this has dried, depending upon how well it's sealed, I think I'd do another coat just to finally put the tree together. So all that really remains to do is to knock off the final few that I've got, and then I'll show you how we're going to use them and how we're going to base them up.